Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for the Voice of Leadership and for Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. Recently, on episode 481, when I was talking about raccoons, squirrels, and magpies, and making some observations about animal behavior, I noted that animals often, especially squirrels and magpies, were willing to trade in their freedoms for the golden handcuffs of food. And I thought it might be useful to take the notion of golden handcuffs and unpack that more for those of us who are humans and to talk about what that really looks like in the workplace. So today we're talking about golden handcuffs, the downside and the upside. So, first of all, let's define golden handcuffs. What I mean by that term is the financial and other incentives given to employees to keep them in their jobs and to keep them loyal to the company. In addition, these golden handcuffs are designed to discourage people from leaving the company. The first use of this term that we have in literature that we're aware of is 1958, when Arthur John Steinbeck was referring to the city of San Francisco, and he said that it is a golden handcuff with the key thrown away. Just imagine that. He was describing San Francisco as a thriving place, a place of great opportunity, and yet at the same time, there was some cost involved to actually taking advantage of the opportunity. And sometimes we are paying a price while other people are enjoying the spoils of the price that we pay. So the question becomes, how can we choose to leverage these opportunities, these golden handcuffs, for our own benefit while avoiding and minimizing the traps also associated with them? The modern use of the term golden handcuffs emerged in the mid 1970s. And again, the whole purpose of these benefits and incentives was to encourage especially highly compensated employees to remain with a company or organization rather than to change employers. Now, you might wonder why companies provide these special incentives. What's their purpose? What's their reason? Principally is to attract and retain high quality talent in fields that are difficult to fill or where the industry competition is extremely high. They want to retain the results of their employee investment dollars without losing these highly trained and skilled and experienced people to competitors. Now, imagine with a lot of these high end jobs that people are coming into, the executive roles, there's a huge investment that the company is making to really invest in that person, develop them, give them the necessary experiences. And if they turn around and leave very quickly, they take all of that knowledge to another employer and use it there. So they wanted to avoid that. They also wanted to build their companies and achieve their objectives more quickly without that constant loss of the time that's necessary to train the next new wave of people. So you're losing intellectual capital in a sense when people leave early or prematurely, and you're having to invest all over again and spend those same resources two or three times over rather than just to pay the costs to retain the people you want to retain. Now, this is especially common in jobs that are in IT or in high tech areas. It's also common in jobs where the labor demands exceed the supply of qualified people. And so companies want to retain those with exceptional or irreplaceable skills and knowledge. Sometimes companies also provide these incentives because they know that they are asking employees to work under challenging conditions. Maybe there's a poor company culture. Perhaps there are very long hours that includes working on weekends. And maybe they want their employees to be available on call 24/7. And that's really a big ask. And so they provide these incentives so that people are more willing to make that kind of sacrifice. So you might ask, well, what are these golden handcuff incentives? What are the kinds of benefits that people are offering in order for people to stay for an extended period of time? First of all, there's often a higher salary that is above the market norm for whatever the job is that the person is in. So you could not go, let's say, to another company in your market for the same position and get that kind of pay. So they're paying above market values. That's one of the golden handcuffs. You might also get some really attractive stock options in your company or some restricted stock options, which means you can get the stock options. However, certain requirements have to be met first, whether that's income requirements of the company, reaching certain milestones of the company, or even the employee being there a certain amount of time or contributing to the bottom line themselves in a particular way. And very often, these golden handcuffs are tied to very specific conditions, such as the length of employment that a person is there, or it might even go all the way until a person retires. So there's also then deferred compensation, which means that it's tied to your length of service. If you stay an additional 5 years, an additional 10 years, or whatever the agreement might be. There are also bonuses, the regular bonuses like your annual bonuses and their performance bonuses based on what that executive contributes to the company and their value. They're given some additional bonuses for their performance. There can also be what we call sign-on bonuses or retention bonuses. And I'm particularly familiar with sign-on bonuses for the military, very often for career fields where they're really making a push to bring in more people. It could be airline pilots, it could be those who are in the infantry and they need more people in those fields. And therefore, they pay a hefty bonus for people who may not even be making that much money, but the bonus could be $50,000, $25,000, or some amount that would be attractive to people in that target market. And if you get the sign-on bonus in a case like that, you have to stay, you have to commit for a certain amount of time, for example, in the military. If you don't stay, if you don't make good on that commitment, then the sign-in bonus, you have to pay it back. That's very unattractive because oftentimes a person may have already spent the money and now you owe the government or you owe your employer. So there's a lot to think about when there are these conditions and terms associated with the golden handcuffs. Now, some of the benefits that are offered also include things like 100% paid health care for the employee and also for their family. Now, that's extremely valuable, especially with healthcare costs increasing every day, every year. Many families can save a huge amount of money by having that benefit. Sometimes there's what's called the post-retirement healthcare benefit. We know that in many companies, you can purchase a healthcare package even as you're exiting and you want to continue your healthcare coverage. It's usually extremely expensive, often cost prohibitive for many people, including executives. So if the golden handcuff is that if you stay and retire, you get this health benefit automatically included with no cost to you. So that's a very attractive option. There are also enhanced retirement plans, all different names. One of the names is called SERP, Supplemental Executive Retirement Plan. This is beyond your traditional IRAs and 401ks. The company generally has very flexible contribution limits without a lot of limits, and this is 100% paid by the company without any employee contribution. Frequently, these kinds of unusual retirement and pension plans are insurance-based and minimize taxes for the company. So it's a benefit in both directions. There's also additional paid time off and vacation, and sometimes that's staggered. So if you stay for 2 years, you're going to get an extra week or two. If you stay for 3 years, another week, another week. So to get to a point where you can gain maybe 6 to 8 weeks of paid time off, that's huge. That's a lot of the year. And that comes with more tenure, more time with the organization, more years of contribution. Sometimes there's also flexibility in work conditions. Some people may be able to determine what days of the week they want to work, what times they want to work, when they come in, when they leave. Some might want to come in later and leave later. Others may want to come in earlier and leave earlier. Some may want to have a mix of options where they're working in the office and also working from home and working remotely. So, more flexibility is often offered to those who the company wants to retain. There could also be a deal for paid childcare. And we know that if you're in the season where you have young children, childcare costs can be exorbitant. And to have that as an option is useful, or perhaps even free lunch every day in a wonderful company dining room. So these are all possibilities. Companies also get really exotic, and they might even offer some executives a vacation home that they can use while they're employed by the company. So you might get a vacation home, you might get a company car, and of course, there are things like education benefits, tuition assistance, and the military uses this as an incentive very frequently so that a person can get their college degrees or advanced college degrees. Maybe you want a master's degree, a doctorate, or something in a specialized field. Well, the company would pay for that, and that's over and above the education that you already have when you come there. And sometimes there's just other little perks, like they might bring in a massage therapist once a week, and therefore you can get your weekly massage in the workplace. So the possibilities are endless, and companies are very creative about creating additional incentives, additional handcuffs so that people are tied to the company. And it's hard to leave because they really do enjoy those perks. And as I mentioned, there are some restrictions that are often associated with that, certain minimal amounts of time that you have to serve prior to getting the benefits, or you might have to pay back some benefits if you leave early, or you might not even get some incentives until the time of retirement. In addition, companies can level what we call non-compete and non-disclosure clauses and agreements, which can make it very difficult to find a job in your industry with another employer because you cannot use the knowledge and information that you have gained from your current employer. And sometimes those non-disclosure and non-compete agreements are for such an extended period of time, you would have to completely change industries in order to have a viable career. And then you're out of the marketplace for a long time and may not get the same incentives with another kind of job. This happened to someone recently who was really in a national security kind of a job and situation. And when they lost their high level security clearance, it made it impossible for them to get a comparable job with another firm. And it took a few years to sort that out. And before that person finally won their case in court. And in the meantime, they had to really struggle to figure out how they were going to provide for their family. And especially when, in this case, the spouse that was at home was a stay-at-home spouse taking care of the children. So there really are consequences to think about in these cases. Now, also, if you have a lot of perks and benefits and you live in a small town and this is the only big employer that has the capacity to offer these kinds of incentives, and you don't want to leave that small town. Maybe you have a lot of family there, so there's a lot of history, you have support from your family in other areas, there can be fewer opportunities if you do decide to move, and therefore you know you're taking a significant pay cut and a loss of really key and high quality benefits. So those are some of the challenges when you think about the restrictions of golden handcuffs and the environments that people find themselves in. Now, just a few more words about just some downsides. to think about and to keep in mind. When the golden handcuffs are operating, you might get stuck in a job that you don't really like that much, and you're only staying for the pay and benefits. And in that case, you may have less job satisfaction because the work is not as meaningful to you or it doesn't fulfill your personal purpose. Many people have the skill and ability to do particular jobs and roles. However, they don't have the interest in that particular job. So it becomes joyless, it becomes drudgery instead of something that a person is enthusiastic about going to every day. So you want to think about that. And when you're going in strictly because of the golden handcuffs and not because of passion for the work, the employer is also possibly getting less than what they could get because you may not be bringing your whole self to the job. And that's another thing to consider. In today's world, there's also a phenomenon of what I'll call low-level golden handcuffs. And some people have referred to these as maybe silver handcuffs rather than golden because the company is offering some incentives, which is more than what you have and what you've been used to. However, it doesn't include these high-level salaries and perks that I'm talking about. And that becomes even harder sometimes to leave, and yet, you may be in a position where you cannot get even those salaries and benefits with another employer in your area. And so, this low level golden handcuffs can really trap people if you sign up for those. One of the benefits of the high level golden handcuffs is sometimes there are things you're trading off that you can leverage and that might be worth it in the long run. And we'll talk about that in a minute or two. So when you have these imperfect fits, and let's say you can do a job, but you don't want to do it, you don't like it, you don't really enjoy it, it's not really your passion, it's not part of your long-term purpose and what excites you and gets you up in the morning, some of the impact of that is you might find you have increased illness for those kinds of jobs, which means you might have more hospital time or you might have more sick leave and time off. Maybe the job is so high stress, you have a lot of unhappiness in doing the work, and now you have to go to therapy and you have to make time out to go see the therapist to talk about how am I going to get through another day at this job, which I absolutely hate. And some people experience their stress and distress in other ways. Perhaps you might be involved in retail therapy. You find yourself buying a lot of things, which keeps you even more attached to the golden handcuffs because as you buy more, you need that income, you need that salary to fund this lifestyle. And the buying is really not because you need these items or even really, really want them. You are trying to medicate, if you will, yourself because you don't really enjoy that job. Or worse, even than retail therapy, some people are get involved in substance use. They may overuse alcohol, or they may overuse prescription medications, or in some very severe cases, even drugs that are not the prescription pharmaceuticals, but out on the street, which means a lower quality of life for you and your family, and again, more expenses and needing a lot of income to feed those kinds of habits. So there really can be a cost to a very imperfect fit and to when you are relying strictly on the golden handcuffs. Now, I mentioned all of these downsides, and yet at the same time, there really can be some upsides to golden handcuffs. So let's talk about those a little bit. The upside occurs when you look at the benefits that are coming in and which are available to you, both in terms of income and other incentives, and you decide to create your own win-win scenario. That means you decide, well, what are my objectives in taking these perks for right now? It could be that you've got some children who are attending very expensive colleges and you want to get them through those college years. And these benefits help you to do that with greater ease. Well, that's a great objective to have. And so you know that up front, and you say, this is going to take me, given my children the staggered ages where they are, I've got 10 years to make this happen. So you can set for yourself a 10-year plan so that when that 10 years is over, you will have finished those objectives and you have choices to do something else. In the meantime, you have to decide, well, what is that something else? For some people, you might decide, I'm going to retire early. For others, there may be an entrepreneurial venture that you want to pursue, and you may save some money on the side to bankroll that future entrepreneurial venture. You may also decide that you want to get out of the traditional job market. You want to work for a nonprofit organization that's aligned with your values. Maybe it's a Christian ministry and you want to give back, and that ministry may not pay as much as your corporate job. And because you have set money aside, you're not worried about the loss of income because now you're doing what you really want to do and you have income already saved up. And some people want to just totally volunteer to do something. And again, because you've got the money saved up and your current job is funding that desired future, you don't have to worry about that. And in the meantime, while you're waiting the 10 years or however long it is to be prepared for what you're building for, you can take additional education, get certifications, other paid learning to prepare for whatever that future is where you're going, getting that experience. You can take the time to interview people who are in the industry where you'd like to go, learn more about it, find out what's important, what you're going to need as a foundation and a baseline by talking to others. This keeps you energized, having a foray into what that future might look like so that you stay energized, thinking about and planning for that future. So, this is a planning activity. It's not one that you leave to chance or to serendipity. In fact, you might even take a few retreats where you go away and think about and design your desired life as well as your planned exit from the place where you currently have the golden handcuffs. You also might take this as an opportunity to start a side business that creates some passive income streams. And I say side business that's passive income because many times these golden handcuff jobs require a lot of energy and time commitment in the workplace. So you may not have time for a part-time gig of any sort that requires a lot of your energy, but you could do some investments, including real estate investments that are bringing in a monthly income to you, and you don't personally have to do a lot of work. It's passive income for you. I think another piece of this, if you do have additional objectives and you're not planning to stay for the long, long haul, is to really think about how you can create financial freedom early. And this means to choose to live at a level of lifestyle that facilitates where you want to be in the future when you're in that dream scenario, and so that you don't get stuck. So that means avoiding what they call lifestyle creep. Many times, as people gain more income and more benefits, they spend right up to those levels. And yet you can choose to keep your lifestyle at a lower level. And I don't mean low where you're in poverty, at a good level of living, like along the lines of what's written in the book of The Millionaire Next Door. There are people in very good communities, safe, relatively high-end communities. They may not always drive the latest cars, and they have millions of dollars in the bank. You could choose to be one of those people, create the financial freedom for yourself so you don't have to worry about the golden handcuffs. You can choose to leave whenever you want to leave. I remember one time when I purchased a really nice home, and I had an employer that I was working for at the time. And one of the things they said to someone that I know who was a colleague at work was, "Oh, we're so glad that Dr. Karen purchased that wonderful house because that keeps her with us for longer because she's going to have to pay for that house. And I was quite shocked to hear this sort of thinking because what they didn't know is I did not need that job to pay for the house. I already had the resources for the house. And they were thinking that me buying a home was a lifestyle choice and decision that would keep me trapped, if you will, in a job. And nothing could have been farther from the truth. So you don't want to be in a position where you're trapped either. So make some choices that maximize the freedoms that you want to be able to have and also to exercise. And especially if conditions at work become unbearable and you want to take your exit a little earlier than you had originally planned. So, the whole point of this upside aspect of dealing with the golden handcuffs is that you put yourself in the driver's seat. You plan for the life that you want. You set goals, you set milestones, and you set some timelines. And this keeps you moving forward and it makes it easier to tolerate sometimes the things that are not so pleasant because you know where you're going and this is not forever. And keep in mind that more is not always better and you get to decide. I remember David Thoreau when he was talking about this concept. He talked about he was living in a house in the woods and he had it at a minimalist level. He says if he went out into the woods and even got a rock or a piece of wood to bring into the house as a decoration, now he's created work for himself because he's got to dust these items, take care of them. And so, on the one hand, the more possessions you have, the more work you have to care for those possessions. And so, you have to ask yourself, how many possessions do I really need? What is real life and real freedom? And as one of my mentors often says, the real wealth in life is time freedom. Time is our real wealth. And as we get older, we have less and less of that. And you don't want to be trading that in when you could be using it for something else more to your liking, spending time with your grandchildren, hiking in the mountains, or whatever it is you want to do. So here are some questions to ask yourself as we're thinking about these issues today. Number one, is your current job a great fit for your skills, abilities, and interests? Two, to what extent is your current employment in line with your purpose or what is meaningful to you? Three, how much does it cost you to stay in the golden handcuffs? Is it costing your physical health, your mental health, opportunities elsewhere, time with your family? And number four, how can you leverage the current golden handcuffs opportunity as a stepping stone to a better future? How can you use the benefits to create what you really want next? And then number five, what do you need to do to create a win-win for both you and the employer? So it doesn't have to be that the employer is getting the best end of the deal. Both of you can get a great end of the deal if you play your cards right and you put yourself in the driver's seat of your own life. Decide what you want, plan for it, and go after it. So keep these questions in mind for yourself. And today, as we're closing out, I'd like to share several different Bible verses to consider. And the first is from the Living Bible translation, coming from Proverbs 23rd chapter, verse 4. And it says, don't weary yourself trying to get rich. Why waste your time? For riches can disappear as though they had the wings of a bird. So again, the question is the cost. How much are you willing to pay for those golden handcuffs? And I think back to the squirrels and the magpies that got trapped in those traps that were designed for the raccoons and who stayed there for lengths of time that they didn't know when the end was coming and when they would be released. And the question was it worth it to eat that imperfect food in their cases to stay in those cages? And we have to ask ourselves the same question. And so we don't want to wear ourselves out getting rich. Nothing wrong with being rich, nothing wrong at all with getting rich. Great to have these resources that God provides for you. However, if you're wearing yourself out to do it, killing yourself to do it, that is another issue altogether. And then the second set of verses are going to come from the New King James Version, which I typically use. And the first is from Deuteronomy 8:18. And God is talking to Israel, his covenant people in the Torah at the time. And he says, "And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to our fathers as it is this day." So he was reminding the Israelites that he was really Jehovah Jireh, their provider. He was their source. And he would be the one to give them the power to get the wealth so that the covenant that he promised to them as a blessed people, he would be able to fulfill it through them, even as it was at that time in that day. And then that brings us to 1 Timothy, the 6th chapter, verses 17 through 19 in the New Testament. And this says, "Command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, nor to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy. Let them do good, that they may be rich in good works, ready to give, willing to share, storing up for themselves a good foundation for the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life." And this puts everything in perspective. It acknowledges that God is the one who gives us everything to enjoy. And let us not get haughty to think that we have done anything on our own without his grace and favor. And because he has blessed us, let us remember to share with other people and to bless other people. And to remember also that this world is not our home. We are just passing through, and the greater riches are really the ones that are eternal that we can take with us. And all we have to do is look at the Egyptian tombs, the pharaohs, and the others to see they couldn't take the wealth with them, even though they were buried with it. Grave robbers and others came at different seasons, and all of that stuff has been removed from the tombs. So let us store up treasure where it counts, treasure in heaven. And let's take our friends and family to heaven with us. Share with them the good news of God, the opportunity to spend eternal life with him. Those are the true riches. That's true freedom outside of any golden handcuffs. God calls us to freedom in Christ and blesses us with that freedom. So enjoy your freedom. Enjoy leveraging the opportunities you have in your executive role. And if it comes with some golden handcuffs, leverage that for both your benefit as well as your employer. Serve well and prepare for yourself and your family for the future. Have a blessed and prosperous day. See you next time. Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, President and CEO of TRANSLEADERSHIP Incorporated. Did you know that workplaces can make a significant difference in the lives of people, and that you can create a positive culture that gets positive business results and also produces positive life experiences for your employees and your clients and customers? You can make a significant contribution to the world by creating the kind of culture where your people can bring their gifts to provide the most relevant and excellent products and services to your marketplace. What the research shows is that companies with excellent leadership are also more profitable. So as you flourish and as you grow in the world, you can do more for yourself as well as for others. So if this is resonating with you and you want to create a positive, profitable, and powerful corporate culture, and you care about succession, leaving the organization in a better position than when you found it, do keep in mind that that kind of legacy is something that's intentional. And I am happy to partner with you to take your organization to the next level and create that positive leadership culture. So reach me at Dr. Karen, at transleadership.com. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.